The industry, man, it's not the same. Doesn't have to do with talent, it's about playing the game. The industry, wanted, dead or alive, new artists to sell their souls in the way they survive.
You know, Pop signed him. It was a blessing and a curse, and made them write lyrics for him and took all that publishing and took, like, damn. I'm glad I didn't, you know, like.
That's when Diddy started to decline as well, because he was so hot. And when you peak, you gotta come down. That's when, you know, X came out. I'll never forget when, you know, Get At Me Dog came out. That was it. That was it. That was it for Bad Boy. Like,
Diddy's ongoing trial has shown that he wasn't just a sensual freak. He was actually far more twisted and unhinged than many thought. It's no surprise so many celebrities seemed to fear him, but when it came to DMX, he was built differently, and fear was never part of his DNA. Let's find out why. DMX Exposes Diddy. Now, even way before now, before Diddy finally started facing justice for things darker than most people could ever wrap their heads around, there were already rumors floating around. The kind of rumors that never made headlines but stayed whispered in the industry. Stories about people close to Diddy either disappearing or ending up dead, especially the ones who try to speak out or expose what was really going on.
let us not lose sight of what the cold hard facts are. This is someone who destroyed my life.
But in the middle of all that fear and silence, there was one voice that never held back: DMX. X wasn't part of the crowd playing it safe. He didn't care who Diddy was or what kind of power he had, and he didn't even flinch when it came to calling out the truth, no matter how dark it was. One perfect example is an old interview that recently resurfaced where DMX flat out said that Diddy was R-wording his artists.
You know, Pop signed him. It was a blessing and a curse, and made them write lyrics for him and took all that publishing and took, like, damn. I'm glad I didn't, you know, like.
Now, some folks tried to downplay it, saying maybe X just meant financially, like how Diddy was known for robbing artists blind, not giving them the money or credit they deserved. But then again, a lot of people think DMX said exactly what he meant. Especially now, with all these lawsuits and testimonies coming out accusing Diddy of some seriously disturbing behavior, it's starting to look like DMX was speaking the truth long before anyone had the courage to. And it didn't stop there. In another interview, DMX explained how Diddy had originally passed on signing him to Bad Boy. Why? Because Puff didn't think DMX was marketable, mainly because of his gritty, raspy voice.
He told me to my face, like, you know, his voice is too rough, he's not marketable. I mean, what are you gonna do with that? Like, you gotta respect that.
But once Def Jam came into the picture and threw a big deal DMX's way, guess who suddenly changed his mind? According to Vibe magazine, DMX said Diddy came crawling back, telling him, "I'll lace your pockets, I'll double what they gave you and lace your pockets." But DMX wasn't having it. He turned it down flat, saying if Diddy couldn't recognize his talent from the start, then there was no point in coming around now.
When the deals got on the table, he came back like, oh, I'll double whatever they gave you and I'll lace your pockets. I'm cool, homie. If you didn't know what I was then, you just pretty much jump on the bandwagon now. Like, you don't know, like, you still clueless on who I am.
And maybe it was also a bad instinct, because word is, X already had a bad feeling about Diddy back then. He'd heard the whispers, the same dark whispers that are now making national news. And maybe when DMX used the R word, he was talking about the shady contracts and how Biggie and others got shortchanged. But given everything that's come out lately, it makes you wonder if X was being literal the whole time. X also called out the whole twisted game that some rappers were playing in the industry just to get signed. He hinted that some artists were literally willing to do anything, that included bending over for a deal. And one name that came up was Ja Rule. Their beef ran deep, and at one point DMX even claimed he knew Ja was messing around with his male stylist.
You know he be fucking too, right?
No.
Yeah, man, some nigga that was styling his clothes and I got the inside information, man. Some nigga that was styling his clothes for one of them shows, got him ecstasy on one night and f***ed him. Man, Ja Rule was I'm telling you, dog. Oh my mama. Oh my mama.
Around the same time, DMX was also throwing shots at other artists who he believed were compromising themselves for fame and radio play. He saw the industry for what it really was: dirty, manipulative, and full of fake loyalty. And if you've heard his song The Industry, then you already know he broke the whole thing down with no filter.
The industry, wanted, dead or alive, new artists to sell their souls in the way they survive. The industry don't give a f*** about you. But the industry couldn't make a dime without you.
DMX Street Ties. But beyond just speaking the truth and exposing what others were too scared to say, there's another reason DMX didn't fear Diddy or anyone else. He had serious backing. DMX wasn't moving solo. He had real connections in the streets, particularly with the Latin Kings. Not just any connection either, he was tight with King Cudi, the leader of the Latin Kings at the time.
On way to Chicago, my nigga Kato. Nigga was the head of Latin Kings, yo. Head Latin King.
Wow.
I mean, top dog.
That's crazy.
Every time I came to Chicago, so he had 10 trucks at the airport.
Holy
In fact, I got the truck he gave me downstairs.
According to Damien Cash, a mixtape artist and one of Cato's closest friends who eventually got involved with the Kings himself, DMX wasn't just some artist they did business with. He was the only artist they truly rocked with on a personal level. Everyone else was strictly business. They had a friendship and brotherhood with X.
We had a friendship, a brotherhood with DMX. That was the only industry motherfucker we really
And that bond really showed when things got heated between DMX and Ja Rule. During the height of their beef, both of them happened to be at the same airport in Chicago. A confrontation broke out, and that's when DMX made a call to King Cudi. Later that night, when it was time for Ja Rule to leave the airport, DMX had the place on lock. 10 cars deep, packed with goons, parked out front.
Come out the motherfucking airport, my nigga Kato. 10 trucks.
Pow.
All Latin Kings.
Pow.
I mean, and we wasn't on no... well, they did what they did. Whatever. You know what I'm saying? You know how the game
Wow.
niggas, they did what they did.
If X had given the word, things could have gone real bad for Ja right there. But he didn't. DMX decided to let him walk. He straight up spared him that night.
And you know who the I'm talking to, nigga. You only alive because of me, mother. You only alive because of me, you Yeah, remember Chicago. That's all I'm gonna say, Lo. Remember Chicago.
That moment alone showed how tight DMX was with the Kings, especially with Cudi. They had so much respect for him, not just because of his fame, but because of how real he was. So when King Cudi was murdered, it hit DMX hard. X ended up dedicating a song to him called Ayo Cudi.
Things I do for my friends. We miss you. Started off.
After that, the bond between DMX and the Latin Kings only grew stronger. King Cado's own brother spoke out about how much he looked up to DMX for honoring Cudi like that. The love ran so deep that X was even named the godfather to Cado's daughter.
A lot of people don't know this, but DMX was my daughter's godfather. And,
No shit.
you know, he wrote a song for my brother when he was murdered. It's called Ayo Kato. It's
Damien Cash also shared that whenever DMX was in Chicago, he always linked up with the Kings. They'd hang out, talk, even pray together.
When he was in a room, it was electric. It was powerful. When he spoke, when we prayed together. We had meals together. We prayed before every meal.
And in fact, some of the Latin Kings were so loyal to DMX, they actually got tattoos that said "Dogs for Life" as a tribute to him and what he stood for.
There's a handful of guys that have Dogs for Life tattoo. I was supposed to be one of the guys. I just wasn't around the day when they were going to the tattoo shop to get it, and I couldn't make it.
So yeah, with that kind of muscle behind him, Diddy wouldn't dare try anything slick with X. Diddy's trial. Now let's really take a step back and unpack some of the wild, unhinged stuff that has been exposed about Diddy throughout this trial. One story that really had jaws dropping came from Diddy's former personal assistant, David James, and it painted a seriously dark picture of what working under Diddy was like. James, who worked for Diddy between 2007 and 2009, described this terrifying situation that went down toward the end of his time working for him. According to James, one night, Diddy suddenly loaded up with 3 handguns, hopped in the backseat of a black Escalade, and told him to drive. The destination was Mel's Diner in Los Angeles, and the reason was apparently Suge Knight was spotted there and Diddy wanted to pull up.
One of the security barged in and announced that Suge Knight was spotted at Mel's drive-in diner in LA. She said Diddy got dressed, retrieved multiple guns from the safe, and ran out.
Now, rewind just a bit. Earlier that same night, around 4 a.m., James had already been at that diner with Diddy's security guard, Damian Butler, known as D-Rock, Biggie's longtime homie. They were picking up food for Diddy and his crew when they noticed Suge Knight parked just a few spots away. Butler walked out and introduced himself. "It's me, D-Rock, Biggie's boy." Suge, surprisingly, didn't pop off or cause a scene. He responded with, "What are you doing in my city?" And Butler just replied, "Getting money, you know what it is." They even shook hands, seemed like it was all cool. But then things got real. James said they went inside to get the food, and while they were waiting, 4 black SUVs pulled into the lot. Then James saw someone hand Suge a gun. That's when Butler turned to him and was like, "We gotta effing go." And just like that, they jumped into the car and sped back to Diddy's mansion in the Hollywood Hills. Once they got back, instead of just letting things go, Diddy told them to switch vehicles. They got into the Escalade and James had to drive them right back to the diner. This time, Diddy wasn't playing games. James looked in the rearview mirror and saw 3 handguns sitting on Diddy's lap. 3 guns, 3 people in the car. James admitted that it hit him right then. His life could actually be on the line. When asked later why he didn't speak up or back out, he said, "I didn't think I had the option to say something." Thankfully, when they got back to Mel's diner, Suge was already gone. Diddy told James to circle the block a few times, but there was no sign of him. A few days after that whole incident, James gave his 6 months notice and left the job for good.
He alleges involved Sean Combs. One was a break-in that happened at his house. This was right after Cassie Ventura said that Combs had found out she and Kid Cudi were seeing each other.
Kid Cudi. But that wasn't even the craziest thing to come out of the trial. One of the most shocking and disturbing moments was when Kid Cudi took the stand. So for folks who might not know the full story, let's break it down. Back in 2010, during what Cassie described as a break in her relationship with Diddy, she actually started seeing Kid Cudi, and the whole thing might have never happened if Diddy himself hadn't introduced them. Apparently, Diddy reached out to Cudi to help with Cassie's music career, and in the process, Cassie and Cudi's work relationship started turning romantic. It didn't take long before they were actually dating. But when Diddy found out, he lost it. According to Cassie, Diddy went full-on scorched earth. He allegedly threatened both her and Kid Cudi's lives, blackmailed her with explicit S-tapes he had of them, and even went as far as to extort Cassie's mother. She claimed that she had to pay Diddy $20,000 to keep him from doing something reckless, either to her or to Cudi, or from leaking those tapes. Prosecutors have been using this as part of their case to support the racketeering charges against Diddy, pointing to it as a clear pattern of threats, coercion, violence, and even arson. Because yes, Kid Cudi's car really did get blown up, and according to Cudi himself, that wasn't even the worst of what happened to him. When prosecutors questioned Cudi, they started by asking him if anything happened at his home back in December 2011, and Cudi confirmed yes, there was a break-in. He said Cassie had called him super early that morning, around 5:30 or 6 a.m., and warned him that Diddy found out about them. She was clearly panicked and asked him to come pick her up, which he did.
He said that day actually started with a call from Cassie herself about 5:30, 6:30 in the morning. And Cassie relayed to Kid Cudi that Diddy had found out that the two were dating, and she sounded kind of stressed during this phone call.
They asked how she was acting, and Cudi said she seemed extremely stressed and scared. He ended up taking her to the Sunset Marquis Hotel because he thought it was off the radar and safe, somewhere Diddy wouldn't think to look. But it turns out that wasn't exactly true.
So Kid Cudi could verify that Sean Combs, aka Diddy, aka Puff Daddy, whatever we're calling him, was inside his home when he wasn't there. He said gifts were open on the kitchen counter, stuff was pretty expensive, it was from Chanel, and that his dog surprisingly was locked in the bathroom. After this break-in had happened, that his dog became jittery and was always on edge at the time.
Cudi told prosecutors he also spoke with Capricorn Clark that same morning and that she was nearly in tears. She told him that Diddy was in a car outside Cudi's home. When the prosecution asked if Cudi called Diddy, he said yes. And what did Diddy say? "I'm over here waiting for you." They then asked Cudi what the outside of his house looked like when he got there. He said everything looked normal, but the thing was he had security cameras and later found out they weren't working. He said the security cameras around his place had been tampered with, moved from their usual positions, and some luxury gifts he'd gotten from Chanel had been opened, like someone had gone through them. Even more alarming, his dog, who usually had the freedom to roam the house, was locked inside the bathroom. That was way out of the ordinary.
So Kid Cudi could verify that Sean Combs, aka Diddy, aka Puff Daddy, whatever we're calling him, was inside his home when he wasn't there. He said gifts were open on the kitchen counter, stuff was pretty expensive, it was from Chanel, and that his dog surprisingly was locked in the bathroom. After this break-in had happened, that his dog became jittery and was always on edge at the time.
When the prosecutors asked how he normally treated the dog, Cudi said, "I always let him roam. I've had him for 3 years, he's like family." Then they asked, "Did you notice any changes in the dog's behavior after the break-in?" Cudi replied, "He was on edge, jittery all the time." That one answer said a lot. People close to the case believe whoever broke into the house might have messed with the dog, maybe even hurt or poisoned it. The dog clearly went through something traumatic, and while there's no proof it was Diddy, the timing, threats, and context all made people suspicious. Prosecutors then asked Cudi about seeing Cassie again after that, and he said she seemed completely depressed. He mentioned that they spent time together in Connecticut because she just needed to get away. They then asked if Diddy had tried contacting him during that time. Cudi said yes. Diddy called him multiple times, but he didn't want to speak to him. He broke into my house, hurt my dog. Eventually, the conversation shifted to Cudi's car, the Porsche that was mysteriously blown up. Cudi testified that he found out about the incident from his dog's sitter, who called to say the car was on fire. When asked how he reacted, Cudi said bluntly, "What the F?" He was then asked if he believed it was accidental or deliberate, and without hesitation, he replied, "Intentional."
A few weeks later, January 9th of 2016, a Molotov cocktail was lodged into the driver's side of his car, of his Porsche, mind you, and we saw a lot of exhibit photos from that Molotov cocktail.
Photos of the burned car were shown in court, driving home how dangerous things had gotten. If Cudi had been in the car that day, things could have ended very differently, possibly fatally.
The jurors saw the actual cut, the hole in his Porsche, and then they saw the damage done from that Molotov cocktail.
Then came the story of a tense sit-down at Soho House. Cudi, realizing things were spiraling out of control, reached out to Diddy directly and requested a meeting. It was arranged by Diddy's longtime security guy, D-Rock, along with Cudi's own manager. When Cudi arrived, he said Diddy was standing there like a Marvel supervillain, acting weirdly calm. Diddy told him, "We're homies, you know that's my girl." Cudi was confused, responding, "I thought y'all had broken up." What made the meeting even stranger was that Diddy offered Cudi water twice during their conversation, something Cudi found oddly unsettling given the circumstances. Then they asked Cudi what Cassie said at the meeting, and he said, "She told him we fell in love. Things happen." When the topic of the Porsche came up, Cudi asked Diddy straight up, "What about my car?" But Diddy played dumb, saying, "I don't know what you're talking about." Cudi said he didn't buy it for a second and walked away.
Kid Cudi had said something along the lines of, "What are we going to do about my car?" And Diddy said to Kid Cudi, "I don't know what you're talking about." Essentially, Kid Cudi believed Diddy was lying about this because, there were some objections thrown here and there, but he kind of snuck in there that he believed that Diddy was a violent person.
Years later, Cudi would run into Diddy again at the same Soho house. This time, Diddy surprised him by apologizing. He said, "I'm sorry for all that BS, I didn't expect that," Cudi said, "but I found peace with it." Then they shifted focus to Capricorn Clark, who was Diddy's assistant at the time. "What did Capricorn tell you?" they asked. And Cudi revealed something wild. Sean Combs and an affiliate forced her into a car and made her come to my house. Cudi said he was so alarmed by that he immediately called the police. Now, the fact that Diddy allegedly forced Capricorn Clark, his own assistant, into a car to go confront Kid Cudi is just another level of twisted. People online haven't forgotten that Suge Knight once mentioned something similar. According to Suge, Diddy beat up Capricorn Clark after finding out she had been helping Cassie and Kid Cudi hide their relationship. Suge even claimed that Interscope had to pay Capricorn off so she wouldn't go public with what she knew. If that's true, it adds even more weight to the idea that Diddy wasn't acting alone. There was a whole machine behind him helping cover up the chaos, using hush money and intimidation to keep people quiet. Now back to the courtroom. Prosecutors asked Cudi, "How would you describe Cassie's emotional state that day?" And he said, "She was really shook, just by him finding out about us." He made it clear that the moment Diddy discovered the relationship, Cassie's life became even more difficult and dangerous. Then they asked Cudi why he and Cassie eventually broke up. "Why did the relationship end?" they asked. Cudi said, "The drama. It was getting out of hand, I wanted to give space." Then the prosecutors dug deeper. "What drama?" Cudi said, "The break-in, for my safety, her safety." Then they asked, "Why were you so concerned about safety?" And Cudi said, "Because I knew Sean Combs was violent." Cudi had seen and experienced enough to believe that Diddy was dangerous and capable of taking things too far. People are now giving Kid Cudi his flowers for having the courage to testify. It's not easy standing up to someone as powerful and feared as Diddy, but Cudi sat there on that stand, told his truth and laid it all out. That takes guts, and the public knows it.